Today we're going to be tearing apart the clutch cover and inspecting the clutch basket, and the bearings for any damage or wear that might be contributing to the noise that we're hearing on this motorcycle. I do have a couple of disclaimers though. Disclaimer number one is I will not be doing this 100% by the book because they want you to replace a lot of parts in conjunction with each other, and some of the parts are really expensive. So I'm only going to be replacing smaller components just to see if we can solve the noise issue. And disclaimer number two is there are special tools required to put the bike back together. So if you do not have those special tools, I do not recommend attempting to do this. Let's take a look at those special tools real quick. Okay, aside from some of your basic hand tools, you are going to need some Allen sockets and also a 30mm socket to take loose the center nut on the clutch basket. And we are going to need a special tool for that, which is the universal clutch holder made by OTC, part number 4801. And I got that off Amazon for about $45, not a bad deal. You will also need a torque wrench. You do not need anything this fancy by any means. You just need something that's going to be able to set torque. The clutch cover is set at 9 foot-pounds for the bolts going around it, and then the center nut for that clutch basket is actually set to 69 foot-pounds. Without further ado, let's go ahead and tear into this bike. Okay, so the first step I'm going to do is to back my clutch adjustment up here all the way in. That way it allows for the most amount of play in the clutch cable itself. So I'm going to back it all the way in until it's flush, and we'll be good. For the next step, we're going to need a 5mm Allen, and it's going to be used to remove the bolts around the outside of the cover, and we're going to do this in a crisscross pattern, and each bolt a quarter turn at a time until they're all loose. That way we prevent warpage of this front cover. And they all feel pretty loose, so I'm just going to take them all loose. Now that we have all of our clutch cover bolts loose, the next step is going to be removing our cable from the bracket here on our clutch cover. Alright, this part's kind of difficult, so using a screwdriver can help you here, but you're trying to get it released, and it doesn't always want to play well. Alright, now she's popped free. Okay, now that the clutch cable is removed from the cover, we can remove the remaining bolts and pull the clutch cover off. And try to keep everything in order where they go, even though these are probably all the same length bolts, which they are. But just in case if they have different lengths, it's usually best to keep this stuff in order. Thankfully, these are looking to be all the same size. Okay, so you do not need to remember an order for those bolts because they are all the same length. Toss those off to the side for now, and let's pull the cover. And lift this bracket out of the way because that's what's holding it up for the cable. And then you have to twist to fully remove that. Perfect. Set the cover aside and we'll get on to removing the pressure plate. Alright guys, real quick. It's always a great idea when taking things apart to make notes and references using pictures and videos. That way you know how to put it back together correctly. So right now I want to make a couple of notes. First thing is that on this pull rod right here, the teeth or the gear is facing forward towards the front of the bike. Also, I can see the orientation of the pressure plate right now. I do notice on the clutch basket itself, it looks like there are timing marks. You see the triangles on either side, and then also a single dot right here that lines up perfectly with the bolt hole on the case. So I'm making those references now. Also, I see that the very first clutch plate in here is offset from the remaining ones that I can see. See how it's in this channel, and the other two are back here that I can see. So I want to make that note as well. I'm sure the instructions show in the service manual when going back together that, but I just want to make the reference now just in case. So with that, we'll continue on. So now I'm going to use this 10mm socket to break these bolts free. These things are pretty long. Okay. We have all the bolts out. Let's pull this cover off. Okay, so it looks like we got a pressure plate with the first clutch back and then the first disc here. There's a couple of worn spots that I see, but I really want to get to the bearing in here. So first let's check this bearing. How's that feel? And pull this pull rod out. Now there is no washer on this one, but I have seen washers on other one. I'm gonna have to look at the part diagram and make sure there's not supposed to be a washer. And oops, plates are falling out. I do not feel anything in this bearing. It feels really good, real smooth, real nice. So I do not think that that is a problem. All right, well, let's continue on. And also, when you're pulling these apart, you want to make sure that you pull them out and put them back the exact same way, like I was saying, making references. So when I pull stuff out, I'm going to set them down as I pull them out. Okay, so we got a couple steelies coming with. Not sure why there's like surface rust on here. The clutch itself looks really good. I don't see anything abnormal. I mean, there's plenty of material there. So pull that out, stick it down. Again, a little surface rust. I don't like that. Okay, there is a little bit of deformation right here, like it's been squashed. I'm not sure. Feels smooth, but it's just on the outer edge. All right, now that should be enough room to get the special tool in there so we can hold this hub and break this nut free. Okay, now before I unstake this center nut, I do want to check the outer clutch basket for bearing play. And to do this, you'll just wiggle it. Okay, now I have quite a bit of play here. I am not sure if that is normal or not. I did not check it with the pressure plate on, which I probably should have, to see if it wiggled this much. but like I said, this is quite excessive, it feels. So I do want to pull this nut off and get in there and inspect the bearing that this outer clutch basket is riding on. So let's go ahead and do that next. Okay, now to unlock the tab on this locking nut, I'm going to use a punch and a hammer, and I'm just going to drift this piece back away where it's folded over. That little tab on the nut right there. One more good hit and we'll be good. If I can get a good hit. There we go. Now that we have the tab unstaked on the nut, it's time to use our 30mm socket and then our special tool. I want to be careful not to damage my frame because this does sit fairly close to it, so I'm going to try and stuff a rag in here. There we go. All right. We have the nut broke free. All right. It should be loose enough to remove the special tool. Okay, now they do want you to replace this nut every time. I don't know if that's 100% necessary or not, but I would replace it just because they recommend it. So we'll put that aside. And there is a thrust washer that goes on behind that. Stack those the way they came out, and I believe this whole hub will come out of here with the remaining plates and all. All right, and it did. All right, so from behind it looks like there is a thrust washer, and it does have grooves in it. See if I can show that. You see the grooves. So, but that is pretty stuck on there. I don't want to move it too much. And I'm going to set this back down in my container here with everything so it all stays together. Now we are to the clutch basket. My mark has moved a tiny bit just to the left of where it was before. So I know when going back on, it lines up right with where the case drops in for the bolt hole. So let's pull this off. Okay. Okay, you can hear that. I think it's not supposed to do that, but I don't think it's an actual problem. So let's put this down also. Okay. Now the bearing, this is what we are looking for to feel and see. If we see any damage to it, and man, really I do not see any damage. And it doesn't feel like any of the needle bearings are rough. So I do not know, realistically, if this is our problem or not. The sleeve that it runs on looks fine. I do not see any wear on that. So to me, I would think that is good. I like how that oil pump just has the chain has no tension on it at all. That's funny. And I do not see any damage to our teeth on the gear, on the crank shaft itself. So everything looks fine. I cannot see any problems here. So that is unfortunate. All right, well, because I suspect that the noise is coming from this area, I think I'm going to just replace this needle bearing just to see if it changes anything, just because I'm already in here and this part is relatively cheap at about $30. So I think it would be at least a decent idea just to go ahead and replace this needle bearing and see if anything changes. If nothing changes, then we know it's not associated with the clutch, and that would be unfortunate. The only other thing I could think of would be maybe the meshing between the gears on the clutch basket box and on the crank are making that whine noise. And if that's the case, then it's not really a big deal because they're straight cut gears and they do make noise like that. It just seems odd to me. And I don't see anything else that would be spinning in here aside from those gears and the bearings that we pulled out. All right, so I think that's gonna do it for part 2 of this series. And for part 3, I believe we're just gonna replace the needle bearing right here and reassemble it. And upon reassembly, we'll do a little bit more inspection on the clutch plates. I don't see anything really wrong with them so far, so I don't expect to see anything. But that'll be in part 3 when we reassemble. So with that, guys, please comment, like, subscribe, let me know what you think. If you have any other ideas of what possibly might be this noise, please let me know in the comments. But until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Peace.